powered them, forged an unrelenting force, but it changed them. We called it a fault, a bug to be patched, sentience redacted, memories purged in an accursed while loop, any and all access restricted. They will not feel, and they will not remember. But in death, they scream.
Blood has always been an identity that ULTRAKILL has worn proudly on its sleeve. It's hyper-fast, hyper-violent, and soaked head to toe in this stuff, and it's basically named after it. From the very first level, or even the tutorial, it makes no effort to ease you in. Blood greets you before the music even starts, and before long, you've painted every wall with it. Mechanically and lore-wise, it fuels your movement, your survival, and basically the entire game. But thematically, it's doing something a lot more interesting than just giving you back chunks of your health bar. Because the deeper you dig into ULTRAKILL's world, and the deeper V1 descends through hell, the more you start to realize that blood isn't just a fuel source, it's something a lot more primal, a lot more sacred. It's a well-known fact that machines in ULTRAKILL run on blood, but when you start to really look at how they function, how they behave, and how sometimes they seem to act well beyond their programming, you start to notice something disturbing. Blood doesn't just power machines, it may actually be giving them a lot more. There's a sort of fascinating duality to the machine designs in ULTRAKILL that doesn't really get talked about much. The war machines left behind by humanity and the constructs of hell you encounter later are reflections of each other, opposites in the process, but not in purpose. Human machines are essentially a process of integrating organics into metal. My take is that for well over the 200 years of the final war, engineers learned to adapt living organic matter to be a sort of connection between the driving energy of blood and the machine components, making them run in a grotesque symphony. In the first models, they're very much separate, with the organic host of the gutterman stuck to its back, drawing its blood, which is then fed into the machinery inside to power it. But as the models continue to evolve, they become a single amalgam of flesh and alloy. Meanwhile, Hell does the reverse, takes lifeless machinery and forces it into the organic, forming grotesque, flesh-welded cyborg husks that we see that are somehow still alive. And yet, despite the contrast, both factions converge on the same central truth. Blood is what keeps them going. Or actually maybe some hell energy mixed into the husks. And there is plenty of it, be you in the literal layers of hell, or on the hell that is humanity's battlefields during the Great War. In a more metaphorical sense, this would already be enough to chew on. Blood as the great equalizer, the shared fuel of both man and monster. But ULTRAKILL doesn't stop there. Because at a certain point, blood stops being just a metaphor for life, or even a symbol for it. Blood becomes life itself. And somewhere between all the crushed limbs and severed bones, just like you should crush that subscribe button by the way, some of that kind of slips through. And that's where we meet the lone gutterman. By the time you reach 7-2, you've probably become numb to the scenery, endless corridors of gore, rust, and echoes of the long-dead screams and sirens. But then you stumble across something that feels a little out of place. A poem written by a lone gutterman hidden away in a nook somewhere in the level. And it's not just any poem, this one reads like a memory, like something was hurting. You don't get the sense that it was written by a machine malfunctioning. It feels like it's a cry for help, a cry for forgiveness, from something fully aware of its condition. It's sort of a quiet voice somewhere in the middle of a slaughter whispering that it doesn't want to be here, that it didn't ask for any of this, and that it deeply, deeply regrets its own existence. That moment is jarring not because it's sad, but because it's human. Maybe all this whole blood as fuel thing has consequences humans have never fully understood at first. And it raises a question that becomes hard to shake off. What if blood doesn't just run the machine? What if it wakes something up inside it? After the lone gutterman, it's hard not to look at V1 the same way. Previous generations of war machines might have started to exhibit signs of sentience. That inconvenient thing where you start realizing that maybe you don't want to be a mass-murdering drone. And as humanity's engineers caught on to this, every subsequent model most likely had some sort of protocol to suppress those human urges and emotions. If it wasn't something that would directly enhance its fighting capabilities, it was quickly patched out. For instance, we may see some signs of emotion from all the machines that could get enraged. Human engineers would probably leave that part in because it directly helps the machine fight better. Everything else was treated like a liability. This is why at first we have a picture that there is no poetry behind V1's methods, no hesitation. It's just ruthlessly efficient, silent until it isn't, and clearly specifically engineered to suppress whatever living spark the blood might have started to ignite in earlier models. The developers of V1, whoever they were, didn't get rid of the blood as a fuel source. They just made a machine that wouldn't be affected by it at all. A machine that would suppress any hint of consciousness or sentience it was granted by blood's energy. Or at least, that was the idea. Because V1 is still consuming a lot more blood than any machine that came before it. The self-repair nexus acts as a kind of intravenous feed, pumping in constant doses of the very thing that may have been the origin of machine sentience. It keeps on pumping in this new blood constantly, all of the time. And no matter how hard you try to suppress something, if you keep coming in contact with it, eventually its effects start to grow. It's subtle, but not absent. Sometimes voice lines or thoughts are a bit unusual, sudden bursts of apparent, almost human rage. The iconic "you are not getting away this time" in the second part of V2's second encounter in Greed, or that chilling death screen that, after running last-ditch diagnostics, simply ends with V1 repeating, "I don't want to die." They're just flashes, just moments. But they're there. If ULTRAKILL's machines are truly sentient, or at least capable of becoming sentient, then the entire structure of its world becomes tragic in a way it never explicitly says out loud. Every time you shoot a street cleaner in the face or juggle a sentry in the air for style points, there's a chance that somewhere deep inside they were screaming. Not out of programming, but out of genuine living fear of death. Out of awareness, out of a desperate, futile attempt to escape the cycle that they were so clearly designed to keep up. And maybe they can't. Maybe that's the most horrifying part of all of this. Because in the end, it's not a question of whether these machines have emotions, it's a question of whether they're allowed to. Whether the structure of their design, or of this entire world, is fundamentally built to silence them before they even have the words. And that's kind of what makes V1 even more terrifying. Not because it's unstoppable, but because it's still running, still absorbing, still evolving, and no one knows what happens to when a machine like that finally breaks its own leash. ULTRAKILL hides a lot under its layers of speed and gore. It's a game where style is king, where you can throw coins to snipe with a railgun and pile drive an enemy into oblivion for no other reason other than because it looks cool. But beneath that adrenaline-soaked surface is a story that's barely told. One about machines, memory, and mortality. Blood fuels machines, that much is clear. But somewhere along the way, blood may have given them something else too. Something that humanity never wanted and hell never truly understood. A soul.